Hello, my name is Devon Eggers. I am the musician behind the music project Surface of the Sun, and I call it a music project because it is a solo project. There's no band. It's just me. I do all of the writing of the music and the lyrics. I perform all the vocals. I perform all the instruments except for the drums, which I hire out in the studio. And I also do all of the recording, the editing, and the mixing as well. I first really got into music as a teenager in the 90s. There was a crazy amount of great music back then, and that inspired me to start playing guitar. I started writing music, played in my first band in high school. Then from there, I started doing live sound for shows at the school or at local venues. And then from there, I helped build recording courses. Then I went to school for audio engineering. And then I worked in some of the major studios around Vancouver, British Columbia before becoming freelance. And then eventually starting to focus on my own music, which is when Surface of the Sun came to be. What drives me as an artist to create music? It's really hard to say exactly what drives me. Ever since I really got into music and started playing guitar as a teenager, it just became something that I've always needed to do. It's something I feel I have to do, and I don't feel right if I'm not doing it. I feel like something is missing. So the motivation to do it is just, I guess, kind of inherent in who I am, and I have to. I think that's the simplest explanation. But in addition to music being this thing that I just need to do, there's also this element of being able to share one's art with others and seeing them experience it and hearing the feedback and hearing how it impacts them really became this other motivational factor for me to continue making music, because being able to influence people like that or impact them like that is something that's just kind of, it's very hard to describe until you've been there, and that's really become a big part of doing this for me. It's something that I need to do for me, but it's also become something that I want to share with others as well. Where does the band's name come from? So a long time ago, I developed this habit of naming things from looking at my movie rack, where I keep all my DVDs and my Blu-rays. Oh geez, it started a long time ago when I first started writing music. I was living in this very small basement suite. Everything was crammed together. My TV and my sofa were next to my computer and my guitar, which was, next to, I don't know, probably something from my bedroom because I didn't have much space. So as I was there working on this song, I needed a working title. I didn't have lyrics for it. I didn't quite know what it was going to be about. But I needed some way to differentiate it from all the other songs that I was working on. So I looked over at my DVD rack at the time. Blu-rays weren't out yet. And I picked The Matrix. The Matrix ended up becoming my first working title song from looking at my DVD collection. And from there, it just always continued. As the years went by, I started always going back to my movie collection to get names for songs as I was working on them. And then years go by and I end up getting a couple of dogs. And guess what? That's where I went to name the dogs. So I go back to my movie rack. And it wasn't that easy that time. I found myself becoming very picky, knowing that this was a name that I was going to be stuck with for a very long time. And I had some criteria. I didn't want it to be the something, the Beatles, the whatever. I didn't want to go into that very stereotypical way. And I didn't want it to be short. I didn't want one word or two words. I like something a little bit longer. And another thing that I wanted in the name is I wanted it to be a little bit scientific. And by that I mean something in the realm of sciences. So a few weeks went by of me reviewing my collection as I was working on songs. And I rewatched one of my all-time favorite science fiction movies called Sunshine. And I don't want to give any spoilers about it, but it involves the sun. After watching that movie and listening to the score and everything, it just jumped out to me. So the sun and space and all of that really kind of hit that nail on the head. So I settled on Surface of the Sun after a few weeks of just kind of beating my head against the wall. And the other thing that I really liked about it is technically there is no surface of the sun. And I thought that was a nice little twist to it. Tell us about the newest album. The newest album is 2 songs. It's called Dragon. The title track and the first single is Dragon, and the second song is Vanguard. And this album really is a follow-up to the previous EP, which was called Panacea. And on there's a single called Oblivion, which is my first radio single, and it peaked at 26 on the Canadian Rock Radio Top 40. And it also got me a spotlight on a Billboard report, which was really exciting. And after the success of that song, I really wanted to follow up quickly. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go with 2 songs instead of an EP or a full album. In my mind, I'm thinking about following up to Oblivion. You know, what am I going to do next? Where is Oblivion taking me? And after I came up with the song ideas, the music, I thought, you know what, why don't I follow up to Oblivion lyrically as well? And Oblivion is essentially about overcoming self-doubt. It's about beating that voice in your head or in one's head that says you're not good enough, you can't do it, you suck, you're shit. Whatever it is, it's about arguing with that voice and overcoming it. So I thought, you know what, let's follow up to that. So what happens after you overcome that voice, you overcome that challenge? And that's what Dragon became. It became about now having beaten that voice and overcome that obstacle of self-doubt, it's now about becoming that thing that you always wanted to be, that you've set out to be, the thing that you've kept yourself from being. And that's what the dragon represents in the song. And then following up to that, Vanguard then became about, now that you've achieved that goal and you've become that thing, that dragon, it's then about taking what you've learned and leading others and inspiring others to overcome their own obstacles so that they can then become their own dragon or whatever that thing is. So all 3 songs, from Oblivion to Dragon to Vanguard, ended up actually becoming this unplanned trilogy of personal growth and then achieving goals, and then of inspiring and leading others to do the same so that they can then become the dragon, and so on. So it's a bit of this repetitive cyclical pattern that repeats on itself and continues, which, again, when I wrote Oblivion, wasn't part of the plan, but by the end of the Dragon release, being able to complete that trilogy lyrically was a pretty cool experience. Now, the 2 songs on the album are a bit contrasting each other, and I aimed for, I guess, the 2 spectrums of what falls within Surface of the Sun. Dragon was aimed at being a little bit more of a radio single to follow up to Oblivion. It's shorter, it's a bit catchier. It's still got this very heavy groove that you can really rock to, but it is on the catchier side of things, whereas Vanguard is longer, the arrangement's more elaborate, it's very much more in the realm of being progressive rock metal. And to date, Vanguard, I think, is probably my most favorite Surface of the Sun song. It has so many cool elements going on, very detailed arrangement. It's elaborate. It has this nice build to it, these transitions that go up and down. So I think overall the release is a really good example of what falls within Surface of the Sun, and I think there's something there that a lot of people enjoy. What is the story behind the album cover artwork? There's not really a specific story behind the artwork. I'd worked with an artist on the previous EP, the Panacea EP, and I thought his work was brilliant. He was great to work with. His name's Vorart. So having done that album with him, I immediately went back to him for this one. And I didn't have anything specific in mind. I didn't need the album art to have any specific meaning other than I just wanted it to look a certain way and feel a certain way. And the current artwork that I have, when it came to be, I liked the Asian flair that it had because it really ties in nicely with all the Asian instruments I used in the production, and I used a lot on these two songs. It really kind of sets the tone for the whole release. So to have the album have that tone, I thought it paired really nicely with the music, and really that's all that I wanted to achieve with the artwork. Are there any new albums that have caught your ears? Yeah, there are a couple. I've been listening to a lot of Unprocessed lately. That group is nuts. It's incredible. They have such a neat vibe to them. And I don't remember the name of any of the albums specifically. I think I've bought all of them over the last few months. If you haven't heard Unprocessed, I highly recommend you check them out. Tell us a bit about your local music scene. Well, I think like many places, local music scenes kind of got the ass kicked the last few years with COVID. I mean, that just wiped out more than music scenes, right? I mean, that screwed up a lot of shit for sure. And how it's been since then, it's tough to say. I haven't really been too involved with it because Surface of the Sun is a solo project. Live shows have really never been part of what I do with the music. It was actually something I started to prep for in the weeks leading up to COVID. I mean, I was doing some rehearsals, working with the drummer, talking about doing some live shows for the first time, practicing for that, building up for it, and then fucking COVID hits and all that goes out the window. So, yeah, I think it's still pretty rough. I know it's been building up again the last year, but you know, from a musician's perspective, I think it's always been a bit challenging because it's tough, man. It's tough like any part of the music scene. I think most artists are losing money when they go and do shows. You're doing the grind. You're playing the bar scenes. You're putting a ton of hours and a ton of energy. And at the end of the day, I think it's probably costing more musicians money to operate and do those shows than they are having a chance of actually making any money from it. So I think it's really tough from the musician's perspective. For the fans of music, I think it's pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of incredible, great talent that comes out of the Vancouver area, that comes out of British Columbia in general. So I think for fans of music, there's a lot of shows and a lot of different varieties of music to go and see live. And we're also close to places like Seattle, so I think there's a good connection between the cities like that. What are the future plans for Surface of the Sun? The main plans right now are focusing on some new music. I've been really busy the last while with acting. I've been in some feature-length indie films, a lot of indie shorts, television series. I've got a lot of auditions going on, and I also spent a lot of time focusing on my novels. I'm currently in the process of writing my third novel in my Skyview series, and I also released 3 different albums or singles and EPs under my own name, Devon Eggers, last year of a variety of different genres and completed 2 music videos for those. So there's been a lot on the go over the last couple of years since I released the Dragon single, and I want to get back to Surface of the Sun. So the last couple months I've actually been really going with a fine-tooth comb through all the ideas and stuff that I've recorded over the years, when I'm really compiling all that and getting a sense of the things that I did before that I like, but also coming up with some new stuff. I would love to release a new EP sometime next year. So this is a good one. Okay, tell us, why does metal rule? And if you think it doesn't, then why are you playing in a metal band? Of course metal rules! Come on! Metal's the shit, man! Yes, I think metal rules. When I got into music as a teenager back in the 90s, it started with Green Day, Bush X, Silverchair, Moist, a lot of rock, punky stuff, but there was distorted guitars and shit, right? There was some cursing, there was some heavy elements, but for me, everything changed when I heard Korn for the first time back in, I think it was 95, a year after the first album came out. And then I diverted and I started going down this path into metal. And to me, it's always been that way. And the reason I think metal rules is especially now. I mean, metal as a genre has exploded. There are so many subgenres. You've got everything you can think of within metal, and that's one thing I love about it. I love the heavy side to metal, but I also love that within metal you can have melody, you can have soft elements, you can have orchestral. I mean, look what Metallica did with the Black Album and bringing all the strings into it. You can have hip hop, you can have EDM elements. It doesn't matter. That's what makes metal cool, is you can bring whatever you want into it, and if it still has that edgy, emotional, heavy vibe to it in some way, and it fits within that wide umbrella that is metal, it's metal, man. And I think that's what's great about it. You get everything, and what's cooler than that?